Hello and welcome to Samplecast 28. I'm Ruben Cornell. There's plenty in the show this week, including at the end of the show some really interesting tips and tricks for getting your staccato, strings and brass to sound really punchy. Thank you so much for your support and for reaching out to me this week, especially for the person that put that one post on Facebook about my clothes. I'm sure you know who you are. Maybe that t-shirt will make a return, maybe it won't. You'll have to see. Anyway, let's get on with the show. First up, a cut-down version of one of Soundiron's larger libraries. It's Apocalypse Percussion Ensemble Micro. It's basically a slimmed-down version of their Apocalypse Percussion Ensemble library, runs in the full version of Kontakt, and you've got 28 different articulations here, including 400 drum samples in total. They've also provided those samples as WAV files too, which is very handy. I do like it when sample companies do that. You've got 6 concert snare drums here, 5 large tom sets, 7 bass drums. You've got Indian dolls and many more ethnic drums too. I'm not going to run down the whole list. There's over 100 convolution reverbs here too. There's an effects rack built in and dials to tweak the sounds. If you've not gone for the Soundiron percussion before, they have meticulously sampled everything, and this is basically a kind of best of, so check it out at the Soundiron website. You can't have failed to miss the promotions for Spitfire Audio's new library. It's Albion 5 Tundra. There's been a lot of chatter about it online and people speculating on what Spitfire have in store next. So they've finally released details of this Albion package and they're now accepting pre-orders. Since Spitfire do such a bang-up job with their promotion, I'm not going to dwell on Albion 5 for too long here.
Capturing instrumental groups playing at the very edge of silence.
But there's lots of info on their product page, and it's basically sampling the delicate and quiet side of the orchestra. They've used a 100-piece orchestra here recorded at Air Studios in London, and there's the usual Spitfire 4 microphone positions too. They've not used any violas this time around, as they want to create a kind of cold, icy sound without a lot of mid-range. Users of Albion 1 and 2, like me, will be well familiar with the Stevenson Steam Band, Brunel Loops and Darwin Percussion, which all make a reappearance here with brand new instruments and patches. I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. Check it out at the Spitfire Audio website. Rast Sound have a neat vocal library, something a bit unusual. It's Balkan vocals. So this is southeastern European vocals that have been recorded. It runs in the full version of Kontakt and there's WAV files available too. The actual phrases that they've sampled, a lot of them are quite long, over a minute long, so you've got 1.6 gigabytes of content here with 240 samples. They've captured 14 different songs, there's 8 improvisations too, and they've also included some natural and processed legato vocal instruments as well. This is going to be useful for world music, soundtrack scoring and experimental and ambient cues, so check it out at the Rast Sound website. A new product that's also a golden oldie this week, it's Famidrums by Sample Science. This runs as a VST and AU plugin for Windows and Mac as well. And basically Famidrums is a sample-based drum machine featuring the sounds of Nintendo Entertainment System sound chips. More precisely, its DPCM sampler and the triangle and noise waveform oscillators. The drum sounds here included have been extracted from the games themselves, while some others have been converted using classic analog drum machines as sources. A software emulation of the NES sound chip has been used here to get that original kind of crunchy drum sound typical of those classic games, so if you're into your retro games you're going to be into this. This features 38-bit drum kits, you've got LFO, adjustments, trim, reverb and pitch effects too, and they've also supplied the plain WAV files that you can use in any sampler. Currently on Sample Science they're selling Famidrums for under $10, it's going to go up shortly, so if it's something that you think you'd be into, jump on that soon as. This week's big review is String Audio's Dark Matter. Now, this is the first release from String Audio. It's a brand new company, and I wish them luck because this is a fantastic release. You've got 20 gigabytes of uncompressed samples here, and this product runs in the full version of Kontakt. There's over 3,000 samples, and these have been combined into 180 different presets. The product is basically designed as a 4-layer sound design tool for creating dark and creepy cinematic sounds. but I have to say there's lots more to it as well. Each layer here has a volume, pan and pitch control, and the interface has a very clean look. It's just basically black and white and 50 shades of grey. And it's pretty minimal too, but there are useful controls on here such as ADSR, amp and pan LFOs, and filters as well, high pass and low pass filters. You've got 5 FX controls: screamer, lo-fi, phaser, tape saturation, delay and chorus, and there are also convolution reverbs. I'll come on to those a bit later. So in terms of what I liked about the library, well, never has an interface matched the sounds so well on any library. The tones here are bleak and so is the interface. It's really minimalistic. Let's talk about those tones and sounds, and I have to say just a big wow. I can see so much use for these in minimalistic and suspense scoring. Everything that I dialed up, I could sort of think, you know, I can hear that becoming a cue without too much trouble. I think also the sounds would be really great for sound design work. If you're into kind of creating spooky video game effects, this is going to be right up your street. The randomization works well, throwing up combinations which are actually useful, which is unlike a lot of sample libraries out there. Although, to be honest, I had pretty much no idea which individual elements were being loaded in, as there's no way to choose the elements for each layer separately. So you either have to take what you're given with the presets or keep hitting the random button until you find a combination that works for you. For this reason, I think it would be really useful to have some way of keeping some parameters the same whilst randomising others. That's the only thing I'd say about that function. There are a few improvements I'd make if I were redesigning a version 2 of this library. Some controls are not immediately obvious what they were, especially the 6 convolution reverbs right at the bottom of the interface. Also, individual patches are slightly more time consuming to load up than snapshots, so I would have preferred snapshots, I think. I'd have to say as well that the FX menu could be better implemented, as toggling between the different effects is more effort than it should be. Really, they should all be on one page, even if that is a separate page of the interface. Overall, I'd say that I probably wouldn't stray far from the presets, and I'd probably spend most of my time tweaking those if I was using this library in a real-world context. But you've got some amazing sounds here. Also, some of them, like the Dark Child preset in the white folder, are surprisingly tonal and can be used as playable instruments too. This is a really promising start from a new company who clearly has a clear concept for their products, and they're able to follow it through with a versatile and extraordinarily great sounding library. I'd thoroughly recommend it. A couple of updates this week. The first is by Subsonic Artz, and it's available from Kontakt Hub. The library is called Ethereal. This is a soundscape creator for the full version of Kontakt, but be aware it only runs in version 5.6 and above. You've got 1.4 gigabytes of sounds here. It's an updated version of their 2015 instrument, and it includes a brand new interface and more controls to allow you to blend and manipulate the sounds in creative ways. They've also included 51 snapshots here, and it's available at Kontakt Hub. There's been an update to quite a few products from Sample Logic and Best Service, and these are now available in the NKS format from the Native Instruments website. That means anybody with a NKS compatible hardware unit, such as the Complete Control keyboards, should be able to update to those new versions of the instruments. The Native Instruments website itself has a promotion on at the moment. You can get 50% off on these instruments. I can't list them all here, but do check the link in the description below for which ones have been updated so far. There's many favourites, including Sample Logic Cinematic Keys, Morphestra 2 and Best Service Ethno World 5. The discount is only available via the Native Instruments website though, not via the Best Service or Sample Logic websites. Check it out there. Some really nice bargains out there at the moment. I'll start with VST Buzz, which I do almost every single week. It's Neo Soul Keys by Gospel Instruments. This runs in UVI and Kontakt, and I have to make you aware that I've played with both the Kontakt and the UVI versions of these when I was putting the walkthrough together for VST Buzz, and actually the UVI version is vastly superior to the Kontakt version. The Kontakt version's great, it includes all the sample content, it's fine, but the UVI version, if you want to go for that, actually has a lot more different electric piano sounds, a lot more customization options as well. So you've got 50 different electric piano sounds here, there's 125 presets, and you've got Rhodes, Whirly, Suitcase Piano, and lots more different kind of electric piano effects. There's lots of options for customization, including amp and cab options. You've got key noises, vintage modelled effects too. And I'd have to say, if keyscape is something that you've been looking at, but it's a little bit too much for your budget, this is perfect for you. It doesn't include some of the kind of toy pianos and things that keyscape does, but electric pianos it's got down pat and it sounds fantastic. There's 60% off at the moment and it's €69.99. Producer's Choice have a fantastic offer at the moment. You can get 5 of their sample packs for just $1. So you get Survival Drum Library, Ultimate 808 samples, Twisted Loops and Boom Bap Legends. You also get the Ultimate Production Toolbox, which is a pretty large library in itself. The total value of this is $187, but you can get it for just $1. Head down to the link in the description below. This week's tip is a great one on how to make your staccato, brass, woodwinds and strings sound really punchy and aggressive for trailer and hybrid scoring. We've got a really simple staccato line here played with Cinematic Strings Monster Staccato patch, and it's been quantized and the notes are all playing at full velocity. So what I want to do is add a bit more punch and power to those staccatos. It would be useful if I'm doing a trailer track or hybrid, that sort of thing. So firstly I'm going to bounce the track itself, so I've got an audio file. And that will come out exactly the same. It's best to do this before you put any effects onto the track, so if you've got that routed through to a bus, you can just remove those effects or deactivate the bus before you bounce it. You can hear how that sounds. And now I'm going to chop each of those staccato hits separately from each other. And you can do this manually, but there's a really quick way to do it in Logic. Just select the scissors tool and then hold it to the division where you want to chop them, and just keep hold of Alt. And you'll see that chop everything there in sequence. You get lots of different audio regions that are the same size. And then I'm going to chop off the tails, just cut those back a little bit, and I'm going to chop off the attack portion of the notes as well, just slightly, so that the notes come in a little bit further, which gives it a bit more punch. Just pull those up in line with the rest of the track. So you can hear you've got a lot of clicks and things at the moment. So we'll add a couple of fades, just a small fade at the front because we still want to keep that punch, and a larger fade at the end. Now that sounds really strange on its own, but once you layer that up with the original staccato section from the original MIDI, you get an effect like this. You can't actually notice that it's two separate tracks playing together. I'll do it without and then with. This is without. And that's with. And you can take that a step further by adding distortion or bit crushing to the chopped up version of these staccatos. We'll just use that distortion plugin from Logic. And you can play around with the levels and play around with the distortion values, and you can see how that creates a lot more punchy staccato effect for brass and strings. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Samplecast. It was a hell of a job to put it together this week, but we got there in the end. If you'd like more information about the show, please head to thesamplecast.com. You can reach us on Twitter, on Facebook, on email as well. And look out for the podcast too. I haven't mentioned the podcast in a little while. This is where I can expand on a lot of the information in the show and actually fill out that podcast with more songs and tracks from the individual sample library producers themselves. I can also show off a lot more of the sounds in the big review. I'll be here again next week. See you again for Samplecast 29. Bye bye now.